Welcome into 101 Sports. It's time for our Week 9 college football predictions. Last week we improved to 52-27 overall in the season, but had a tough week for our game breakdowns, only going 2-3. Missed on picking Michigan to beat Illinois, and missed on Alabama to beat Tennessee, and then missed in a big way picking Arkansas to beat LSU. So only our second losing week of the season, so we want to get back on track here. So let's get into it. First, some notable games that I get my pick for, but I'm not doing a full breakdown for. The first one I have is Boise State taking down UNLV. This is a huge game for Group of 5 playoff implications, for Mountain West implications, for Ashton Genty's Heisman case, and UNLV's at home here, and this is on Friday. Friday night home game. I think it is a really tough spot for Boise, and because they are going on the road, I almost went UNLV because I think it will be a really good home environment for them. And their run defense statistically is pretty good, but when they played Devin Neal in Kansas, who's the best running back they played so far this year, he had a good game, and Ashton Genty, as I'm sure you guys know by now, best running back in the country, so I think Boise State will be able to run the ball really effectively. I think Genty has another huge game, builds his Heisman case, and I think they do it well enough to win a competitive game against UNLV. But yeah, so this is, like I just wanted to reemphasize, for Ashton Genty, people are wanting to see if he can win the Heisman. You're going to be probably one of the biggest spots for the season because it's the Friday night game and people aren't focused on other games Saturday. So he's got to have a big performance here. And Boise's coming off a bye week, so they should be, well prepared. Second game, though, and that's Indiana over Washington. Curtis Rourke had thumb surgery, so he is out for this game. So the backup, Taven Jackson, brother of Trace Jackson Davis for the Golden State Warriors, is going to get the start here. I still like Indiana, though, because it's going to be, cross-country road trip for Washington, who, I think Indiana's just a lot better than them. We saw what Indiana did to Nebraska last week. I think Indiana is going to out-coach Washington. I think their defense will definitely limit Washington's offense. I expect Will Rogers to make some mistakes here, and I don't think Jonah Coleman in that run game is going to do a whole lot against Indiana either. But yeah, so I think you've also seen in the Big Ten, these long road trips aren't really great for these teams. Now Washington is coming off a bye, which should help negate some of the effects of when the West Coast teams travel, like to Washington, but to Rutgers, back to Washington, back to Indiana or something like that. At least you're coming off a bye, so I think they'll be perform definitely better than they did against Iowa. But I still like Indiana, even with the backup quarterback, because he played really well when he got time in the Nebraska game. Third, I considered doing a breakdown for this because it is a top 25 matchup, but I think the spread's just too big. It's 25 points, so I figured it wasn't worth a full game breakdown for. But yeah, it's not a hot take. I got Oregon beating Illinois. They're the heavy favorite here. They're the number 1 team in the country. But, hey, I picked Michigan to beat Illinois last year. Illinois surprised me. Illinois, they had surprised me when they beat Nebraska. But obviously the best team Illinois played so far this year was Penn State. And although Illinois kept it close, they were never threatening to win that game. And I do think Oregon, with how well they've been playing recently, like Purdue, I thought could be a tricky spot for them, right? You're coming off the Ohio State game, traveling to Purdue, so long road trip on short rest after a big win against a Purdue team that I thought had been playing better and historically upsets top teams. I thought it could be a tricky spot, but no, it's just they were completely dominant. So I really like this Oregon team here. I think they win pretty convincingly against Illinois. I've got BYU over UCF. I almost took UCF here. BYU's on the road as a 1.5 point favorite, but I decided I'm tired of picking against BYU and being wrong. I did it at least a few times this year. I think I did it for SMU, for U of A, Kansas State, maybe with some others. But yeah, I decided if I'm going to be wrong about BYU anymore, I'm going to go with picking them just because they've been finding ways to win games. If you watch the Oklahoma State game, it looked like for sure they were going to lose that one. Somehow they could pull it out of the fire, big drive at the end. Or even when they played a really good team in Kansas State or the U of A game, they find a way to force a bunch of turnovers. They've been really great at that, which is kind of luck, but they've been doing it consistently. So I'm just going to say I think they figure out a way to win it on the road. Be interesting to see if UCF goes back to KJ Jefferson or if they stick with Ja'Carry Brown here. And then finally, I've got Colorado over Cincinnati. Didn't think, if you asked me at the beginning of the season, I did not think this would be a big game in the Big 12. But these are two of the top teams in the Big 12 standings. Obviously, Iowa State and BYU are at the top. But then after that, These teams are tied along with Texas Tech and Kansas State for second place. And Cincinnati, like, this was a team I had written off, basically in the preseason. I didn't think they were going to be any good at all. Then they blew the lead to Pitt. And I just thought, oh, this is not a very good team. But now back-to-back wins. You won on the road against UCF, which I was impressed by. And you beat ASU in a game I didn't think they would win. So they're better than I thought. But traveling on the road to Colorado, assuming Travis Hunter is going to be playing, Colorado has been playing very good football. Just rolled U of A, which was very impressive. They rolled UCF a few weeks ago. And Kansas State, they played a really close game, even with all those injuries. So they've been playing really good football. I've been really impressed by them. You like Shador here, quarterback edge, and I think Colorado, assuming they play the way they've been playing, don't revert back to like early season form, should get this win. But getting into the game breakdowns, and the first game is Notre Dame Navy playing at a neutral site. This should be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to it. See how good is Navy really this year. I'm rooting for them. It's a great story. Let's see if I think they'll win though. For the keys to the game, I think you got to start with Notre Dame run defense, because we know what Navy wants to do, right? They don't want to throw the ball. And if Notre Dame is stopping the run, Navy's going to look very one-dimensional, and it's going to be a long game for them. And Notre Dame definitely has the ability to stop the run. Navy will have to get creative. But also Notre Dame, you're not stopping the traditional run, right? You're stopping the option. It's a little bit different for them. But they certainly have a high caliber of athlete to do it, and you would think they've have a good game plan prepped for this. Then I think Navy's run defense is also huge, because we've seen Notre Dame can lose to inferior teams. They lost to Northern Illinois. They were, struggling early against Miami of Ohio. And part of the reason for that is you're not explosive offensively. So if Navy can stop the run, not only with Jeremiah Love, but with Riley Leonard, and force him to actually throw the ball, then you could get this low-scoring game, few possession games, and you add variance to the game, right? If you're stopping their run, they're stopping yours, it's low-scoring. All it takes is one key play, one turnover to swing the game at any point if it's that little possessions. Speaking of which, time of possession, right? Navy wants to shorten this game. I think if this game's fast-paced, which I really doubt it would be, then I think Notre Dame's at an advantage, because I think over time the more talented team would find a way to win. But if you can shorten the game, make it just a few key plays here or there that your team makes, you can win the game. And finally, Riley Leonard, because if Riley Leonard plays really well, like a B+ to A-level game from Riley Leonard, I think Notre Dame clearly wins. I just don't think we get that from him very often. I think he obviously has talent running the ball, but a lot of time he's errant with passes. He could have turnovers that keep Navy in the game, or cost Notre Dame the game if he's forced to throw the ball. But if he's throwing it well, opening up run lanes for him as well, he's playing just his best game or close to it, then I think Notre Dame clearly wins. For my final prediction, as much as I want to go with Navy here, and I hope I'm wrong on this one, I gotta go with who I think is gonna win, and I think Notre Dame wins it. I'm going 28-16. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I think Notre Dame will clearly have enough of a physical advantage. This will be by far the toughest team Navy's played yet, and I think it'll be enough or too much for Navy, and Notre Dame will get the win. Next up, we got the Missouri Tigers taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide, and these teams, maybe it's hard to imagine them coming off more different weekends the way their last game ended. But getting to the keys to the game, I think the most important thing is quarterback play and health, because Brady Cook, we saw him come back from the hospital and, lead Missouri to a crazy win. But so how healthy is he? Because how much of that is adrenaline? Is he going to be mobile, having hurt his ankle? And even before this game, he had been looking like he was maybe a little bit banged up, but was playing through it. So I have definite concerns over his health. If he's healthy, I think he can play well against Alabama defense that struggled. But I'm kind of concerned about his health. And then Jalen Milroe, I don't know if he's injured, but he played shockingly bad against Tennessee. That way, and he didn't run the ball. It's hard for me to imagine that was a fully healthy Jalen Milroe just playing that bad, because of how highly I regard him and how well he had been playing. So if these quarterbacks are healthy, I think you could get really good games out of them. But I'm really concerned about their health and therefore the level of play that we'll see in this game. Then I have the Alabama secondary, because Missouri has really good receivers: Mookie Cook, Luther Burden, Theo East Jr., and the Alabama secondary. We saw in the Tennessee game, Nico only beat him a couple times, but consistently they're open downfield, getting behind the secondary. I think we've seen this throughout the season. and Missouri has the potential to hit big plays over the top on this secondary. Third, I think team morale, kind of what I was talking about with how the games ended. Alabama, you've now lost 2 games after, the team was probably, on top. You beat Georgia, the team's reached all-time high. You're the national championship favorite, AP number 1. And now, you've fallen fast. You almost lost South Carolina. You blow the lead to Tennessee. You get shocked by Vanderbilt. Is this team mentally, are they tough enough to keep fighting through this and play well, or are they just demoralized at this point? And it's kind of the opposite of Missouri, who your quarterback just came back from the hospital to lead you to a comeback win in a crazy way that you think would spike team morale and reinvigorate this team and maybe be a turning point in the season. So that's what I mean by team morale, and just looking for if the team, if Alabama comes out flat and Missouri comes out energized, Missouri could get off to a fast start, and that could be the difference in the game. Finally, I want to talk about Missouri's run defense, because I think Alabama, they're going to have to start using the run game more, because when they just go for their passing game's too inconsistent, in my opinion, to just lean on full time. I think they got to get more involvement from the run game and try to lean on Missouri here. And I think Missouri's vulnerable. Don't think they're bad, but I think Alabama has the offensive line and the backs capable to lean on Missouri. But who do I think wins? Alabama at home. I mean, it's just hard for me to see them dropping 3 wins before November. I think this one. I know I thought they win the Tennessee game, and this team has been disappointing and done a lot of shocking things I never thought I'd see Alabama do. I still kind of think they're going to figure it out, though, and maybe this is the week. I'm going Alabama to win it 30-17. Obviously, it's hard to be super confident with Alabama with how sporadic this team has been, though. Next game we have is going to be Penn State taking on Wisconsin, and a sneaky. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this. This has upset potential for sure. So keys to the game, I think, has Wisconsin figured out. By that I mean this offense, their air raid system, because they've been playing much better over the past 3 weeks. You blew out Northwestern 23-3. You crushed Rutgers in what was a really surprising result. I think you won one more before that. That's not coming to mind right away. But yeah, so you've just been playing much better the past few weeks. And if this is a team that's, found a new gear and is now, if the whole body of work, you wouldn't see Wisconsin as a top 25 caliber team. But there's a chance that they've figured out and now are that kind of team. And if you're playing that level of team on the road at night, that's a tough spot, right? So if Wisconsin is this higher level of team than maybe people think they are, and I think there's a chance that is what is happening, then Penn State could be in trouble on Saturday. Then I think this Drew Aller momentum, seeing if it carries over, making those big clutch fourth down plays in the fourth quarter of the USC game, when you had to have it, he had to make the play, he stepped up, he did it, and it looked like Penn State had a guy at quarterback, and if he can keep that going throughout the season, Penn State could become a Big Ten title threat, maybe a national title threat. And that we'll start seeing if that's going to be the case this week against Wisconsin. At least in my opinion, we'll see this weekend. And then this Penn State pass rush, Abdul Carter, Denny Sutton, if they can get after Braden Lockheed, I think he'll make mistakes. He's still, even though he's been playing better, it's been against inferior competition. If he's pressured, I expect some interceptions. I expect maybe a strip sack. I don't think he's playing well enough where against a defense as good as Penn State, he can have, an A-plus level performance, but the pass rush has to disrupt him. And finally, is it a Penn State look-ahead spot? I don't think it is, because they're coming off a bye, so he should be well prepped. But when you have Ohio State at home lingering next weekend, you could still maybe look ahead just because it's such a big game. Who am I going to pick? I think it's a tight game. I don't think Penn State's going to put up a ton of points, and I think Wisconsin will be in it for most of the game. But I do think Drew Aller will make some big plays. Braden Lockheed, I think, will make some mistakes, and I think Penn State will win it 24-17. Fourth game, and that's going to be maybe the biggest game of the day, with the LSU Tigers taking on the Texas A&M Aggies. Both teams lost week 1. These are really similar teams. Lost week 1 in marquee matchups, LSU against USC, A&M against Notre Dame. But since then, have looked really good. Got a signature win, LSU beating Ole Miss, A&M beating Missouri, and are sitting atop the SEC standings right now. So the winner of this will remain at the top of the standings as the only undefeated team in SEC play. So if the season ended today, this would be the SEC championship, just for people to realize. A&M 4-0 in conference play, LSU 3-0. So who do I think will take the top spot? Well, let's get into the keys to the game and break it down. I think the biggest key to the game is the LSU O-line versus the Texas A&M D-line. I mean, this is the case with a lot of their games because these are two strengths of their teams. On the A&M side, you got Nick Scourton is going to be a top pick in the NFL draft. On the LSU side, Will Campbell will be as well on the O-line. But it goes deeper than that, right? You got Jones on the O-line for LSU. You got Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, Brownlow Dindy, all these former 5-star recruits on the D-line for A&M who can disrupt a game at any given time. And seeing them face off is a battle of two strengths. Some, like you would think, there'll be like a bit of a balance, and like one side won't completely dominate the other. But if one side does, that could completely swing this game. A&M is at home, and it'll be really loud in College Station, but I think that'll more affect the offensive line procedurally with things like false starts, not really once the snap happens. Either way, though, it should be really fun to watch the strength of A&M fight the strengths of LSU. Second key of the game, I think, is the LSU run game, because if we saw like what they did last week against Arkansas, being able to use the run game and Nussmeier not having to go off, like every game besides that one, he'd had 2+ throwing touchdowns, right? But last week they were able to win convincingly against Arkansas, mostly relying on the run game. And if they're able to do that, if that's who they're going to be now, and they can have a complementary offense between the run game and the passing game, then this LSU team could be a lot better than I've thought they've been throughout the season and have projected them to be. So I think that's a key because they're completely different and more difficult to prepare for as an offense if they have an effective run game. Third, which Connor Wigman are we getting? We're getting the one against Missouri who looked perfect, just making every tight window throw, moving well in the pocket. Or are we getting the one who struggled a little bit against Mississippi State, throws a couple interceptions, right? Or the one against Notre Dame who did not look good at all, right? Which version of him are we going to get? He's a guy who can definitely determine the outcome of this game. And finally, I think A&M has a scheduling advantage here. Being at home, coming off against Mississippi State, which isn't the toughest game, versus LSU having a back-to-back road game at night, right, after their big game against Ole Miss. So this would be, if LSU wins this game, this is 3 straight big wins in a row because you win the Ole Miss game, yes, is at home, but a big night game against a top team, you go to overtime, that's a huge win. Then you have to show up, play a really good game again against a tough Arkansas team on the road. Now you're still on the road against another good team, so you'd have to give 3 straight good performances. And that's tough to do in college football. I don't think they're going to do it. I think they'll be competitive, but I think ultimately Wigman plays well, and I think A&M gets the best of them at home and wins it 27-24. I got a tight one going down in College Station in what I think will probably be the game of the weekend. And my final game I'm predicting is the Texas Longhorns at Vanderbilt. You asked me before the season, I did not think this would be making a game breakdown, but here we are, right? Texas still huge favorites at 18 points, but that hasn't stopped Vanderbilt before, right? So keys to the game, I think Texas, are they demoralized with how they played against Georgia? Can Georgia beat them twice, right? Could Texas come out really flat against Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt gets an early lead, kind of how they did against Alabama. Then they're able to milk the clock, shorten the game, and Texas is just never able to quite get the control of the game they want to. Could Vandy do that and pull the upset? Maybe. I don't think it's likely because I think Texas will be more focused after dropping their first game, but there's always a chance that the team just doesn't respond the right way. Second is Diego Pavia. Can he have another game like he did against Alabama? That's really, he gave a really, an all-time, not all-time great performance, all-time memorable performance, though. He's tough. Can he make plays on the ground against this Texas defense? Avoid the huge Texas D linemen, the fast linebackers, physical linebackers, make plays like that, and is he going to be accurate through the air? He has to have another great game, I think, for Vandy to pull this upset. And then Vanderbilt on the line of scrimmage. Texas, they're better than Alabama on the line of scrimmage. Obviously the team Vanderbilt pulled off the big upset against, especially on the offensive line. And I think Texas would be able to run the ball more than Alabama did in that game. Part of the reason was because Alabama, fell behind early. which again, that's why getting a lead in this for Vanderbilt is huge, because if Texas gets lead early and then just controls Graham on the ground, then Vanderbilt's probably not winning this game. But also on the D-line, yes, Georgia ran the ball really well against them, but, that's Georgia, right? Vanderbilt doesn't exactly have the athletes Georgia does. So there's a chance on both lines of scrimmage. Texas just dominates. And then the final one, it's just, I've been hinting at it the whole time, time of possession. Vanderbilt against Alabama, big reason they're able to win is just they kept Alabama off the field. If they can do that against Texas, sure, they could maybe pull the upset again. But I don't think they're going to be able to just consistently run the ball in Texas and get, quick possessions out of Texas to just control the time of possession as much as they did against Alabama. So who I have winning, as much as I'd want to pick Vanderbilt for another huge upset and what would just stack onto this crazy college football season, I do think Texas wins it 38-20. But that's my final prediction. Let me know, who do you guys have winning these games, or is there something else you see on this weekend slate, maybe a huge upset? Put it in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe. Until next time.